Hi, my name is Ben Himmelfarb, and I'm recording an oral history today with Harry Bright, Tuesday, December 23rd, 2014, and we are at White Plains Public Library. So, hello, Harry.
Well, hi, Ben. Uh, I'm just happy to have this opportunity to be with you and to share some of my life in White Plains. But prior to coming to White Plains, let me just say that my wife and I lived in Cambodia. We worked in Phnom Penh. I worked in Phnom Penh from 1959 to 62 with the Bureau of Education and Cultural Exchange, which is part of the State Department. And my responsibility was to train teachers of health and physical education and to develop the national track and field team for Cambodia in preparation for the Southeast Asian Peninsula Games and for the 1960 Olympics. So we were there for that long, and it was during the time of the Civil Rights Movement. I was not here to be involved, and I think that had I been here, I would have definitely been involved. But my father was involved, and my brother was involved in North Carolina. We grew up in Winston-Salem, and my father was one of 5 black attorneys in Winston-Salem. And my brother was involved in the second sit-in. You know, the first sit-in took place in Greensboro, and then it moved from Greensboro to Winston-Salem. I learned of all of this while I was in Cambodia. And of course, when the Cambodians would ask me what's going on in America, I would always respond, what you are seeing is democracy in action. There's no other place in the world that you could see what's going on in the United States right now that would happen anyplace else. We were fighting for equality, for the right to be respected, for the right to be able to do the things that everybody else does. And the one thing that I know is that we are all human beings. That's the one thing that we have in common. We're still struggling to reach that goal. And now let's fast forward. I came back to the United States and I began teaching in Mount Vernon. That was interesting too, because when we came back into the States, it was at a time when the schools in Westchester County were beginning to look for teachers from the minority community.
What year was that?
This was 1962. And I taught in Mount Vernon from 62, I guess, until 65. Yes. At that time, my wife began teaching here in White Plains. And we were living in the Bronx. And I thought that it would be nice for us to live closer to where my wife was teaching. It was easy for me to move around. And so we decided to move to White Plains. And I must say that from the very first day that we got here, I never felt like a stranger.
Felt at home.
And I felt at home.
Wow.
It just made, it was so comfortable when we came here. White Plains then was really an old country town. And I know there was an older country town before I got here, but for me it was an old country town. I could walk down from Battle Hill where we lived then, pick up my New York Times on Sunday, and it was a wonderful experience after having lived in New York City.
Sure.
And then too, after that, we had a goal. I had a personal goal. I wanted to be able to live in an integrated community. I wanted to be able to live where my children could walk to school. Our first home was on McKinley Avenue, right across from the Battle Hill School. And that's where my children went to school. My wife was teaching at Eastview at the time, and I was teaching in Mount Vernon. And, you know, as we began to become a part of the community, we joined the Chatterton Hill Church. And we've been in that church now for almost 45 years. Our children grew up in that church, and I came, and that's another interesting thing. When I began to look for a church, I wanted to have the same environment that I had in my home community. I wanted a church where on Sunday everybody was able to go. And you know, a lot of times Sunday has been one of the most segregated days in our lives.
I never thought about that. It's true.
Everybody goes to
Right.
a different church or a different synagogue or different, different religious organization.
Sure.
I wanted to be where we could all be together. And I discovered the church around the corner, not too far from our house. And there we were. And we were welcomed into the Chatterton Hill Church, and we were one of two black families in the church at that time. And our children were able to walk around the corner to Sunday school. So that's where they grew up. And we're still there. And we're still there because the church is still open to everyone. And everyone is welcome. And then that's what I believe in. And I've always been a people person. I've always reached out to people, even when I was coaching and when I was in Africa. It was the same thing, working with the athletes and the teachers in Africa and in Cambodia and in other countries like Malaysia, Burma, before they all changed their names.
Sure.
And so I've had a wonderful experience, and all of this came about in my younger years when I was an athlete. I was a runner.
Okay.
And I went to Seton Hall University on a track scholarship. And I was lucky. I was surrounded by athletes who were very good, and I just stood on their shoulders and ran with them.
Yeah.
And as they progressed, so did I. And it enabled me to travel around the world, compete against athletes around the world, and eventually when I retired, to accept the responsibility with the State Department to go to Cambodia, and then to the French-speaking countries of Africa after that. So it was a wonderful experience. Then I came back and got involved in the community here in White Plains.
Landed in White Plains.
I landed in White Plains because my wife was teaching here, and having grown up in a family with a home in the South, my mother visited us, and she was quite concerned that we, at this stage in our marriage, did not have a home. And so she insisted that we need to have a home.
Right. Your own place.
Our own place. And of course, there's a different relationship in the South with families. And my mother just, boom, your down payment is here. And we were able to get our first home. And so we lived on Battle Hill for 10 years, and then finally we moved to Saxon Woods Road, which is on the south side of town. We've been there since 1975, so from the time that I came in White Plains, I've been here for a long time now. I've seen a lot of change, and I think the change has been very, very positive.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Your perspective on.
Yes. As in 1975, I believe it was 1975, I became really involved in the community. First with the Battle Hill Association, and then with the Democratic Party here in White Plains. And it was very interesting because I remember, and I don't want to get too much, I don't want to dwell on politics, but I'll just say this, that I remember the first time I ran for office, I didn't win for city council.
Oh, yeah.
And then a gentleman came to me and said, the only way you are going to be successful here in White Plains, you've got to be a Republican. And I looked at him and I said, I want you to look at me real well. I came here as a Democrat, and I'm going to remain a Democrat. And what I believe is that at this level of government, we should all be concerned about each other. This is where we have control. And if we work together, we can make this a wonderful city. I think the second time I ran, if I ran twice, I think I ran twice. Anyway, the third time I didn't strike out.
Okay.
I won. Yeah. And it was a wonderful experience. I was able to be there to represent everybody in the city of White Plains. The beautiful thing about our city is. We are elected at large. We have no zones or districts in our city. So it means that each elected official has the responsibility for every citizen in this city. So there are no divided interests as far as we are concerned as elected officials. You will have your divided interests from community to community.
Sure.
But as an elected official, you must rise above that and make your decisions predicated on what is best for everyone. And you know, it's not easy. I lost a lot of sleep during those 4 years, wondering and being concerned about whether or not the vote that I had made would be a vote that would impact in a positive way on everybody in the city. We saw a lot of progress. We've seen a lot of progress.
Sure.
And I'm very proud of our city and where we are and what we do now. In addition to that, while I was on the city council, I was also a member of the Human Rights Commission.
Right.
And I started on the Human Rights Commission. Brian Wallach and I were on the Human Rights Commission together. So you see, our relationship goes way back.
Yeah.
And
what was that established to do?
it was established to enforce the New York State human rights law, which provides protection in housing, public accommodations, and employment for the minorities in the community, the disadvantaged, and the disabled in the community. And this is a state law that has been in existence now for a number of years, many, many years. And now we have a Human Rights Commission in the county, which has the same powers that the state law has. So we can take everything now to the county and have it resolved. So there was no need to have duplication in White Plains. So when I retired, that all of that went to the county. But the difference in our community and in White Plains was we had the best local human rights commission in the state of New York. I was president of the New York State Association of Human Rights Agencies. So it gave me an opportunity to see how human rights agencies operated all over the city, to share, to bring together each year. We would talk about our best efforts and the things that we did successfully in our city, and we would share the problems that we had, and we would come together to try to find a solution to those problems that came from each of the communities. And this it spread also to IORA, which is the International Association of Official Human Rights Agencies, for all human rights agencies in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we were a member of that organization as well, and I attended all of those conferences during the time that I was a member of the commission and when I became the executive director of the commission. We also had a human rights award that we gave each year, which no longer exists because we don't have a commission. But we gave it to people who we considered worthy in what they did to improve human rights in the city of White Plains, and it was a wonderful event.
Do any specific award winners or projects or cases that you had with the commission stand out?
Oh yes. I'll give you one example that always comes to my mind. There was a health club, and there was a gentleman who was visually impaired, and he went to the health club, and he was told that he could not join the health club because he couldn't bring his dog in. And it came to me. And our commission did not have subpoena power, but we had the art of persuasion. And I went to see the manager and explained to him that the New York State law says you cannot deny access to a public facility to a visually impaired person who has aid of an animal. Right. He did not know that. And so he thanked me. Mm-hmm. The door was open. I had another situation where somebody put up a sign advertising for employment. And they described the kind of person they wanted. And the sign was right there on Main Street. And somebody brought it to my attention, and I went into the store and explained to them that this is in violation of the state human rights law. You cannot put an application up and describe the kind of person you want in that application because you're excluding others. It's discriminatory.
Right.
And they thanked me and took it down. I don't ever, in the 20 or 30 years that I've been involved in the Human Rights Commission, did I really have a conflict that turned out negatively. One of my best ones, though, is with one of our present council persons who was chairman of the commission when I was the executive director, and it was a housing discrimination case
in the city of White
in the city of White Plains. And we won that case without taking it to the state.
Nice.
And we won it with a settlement of $25,000. And I thought, and that was wonderful.
Yeah.
So we did some wonderful things with our commission. And we also created, when Peter Stone was chairman of the commission, we created an organization called Embracing Diversity and Ending Racism. Mm-hmm. And each year we would have 2 or 3 festivals. We had a chorus that was led by Edith Ladee Finnerty. She was a wonderful person. She came from upstate New York, and when she came into White Plains, she just opened up everybody and the children, and she brought the children in, and we had a chorus. We performed at the Bronx Zoo during the Christmas holidays, nice. and that was wonderful. And we had a festival each year at outdoors at White Plains High School. We had gymnasts and all kinds of other activities involved with the singers, and of course, then we had a member of our commission who was from the Indian community, and because of that connection, we had the dances from the Indian community, which was an experience that had never happened before here in White Plains. So we had all the children in their saris and all the dancing, and that was wonderful. So those are the things that I experienced here. And with the Embracing Diversity and Ending Racism, we had community-wide study circles in the community where we would come together, pick a topic, and the groups would disperse to share their experiences as it relates to that particular topic. And we had always wonderful speakers.
That's really interesting.
To lead this off. And the study circle idea came from a group in Pomfret, Connecticut. I still have all that. I keep that information because I never know when we're going to be able to. We might need it again. Right. You know, it's so important for us to communicate and to talk to people all the time. I did a study circle once in one of the synagogues, and we came together, all of these people, same background, and we talked about their experiences as it relates to discrimination. And as they went around the circle and talked about their experiences, all of a sudden, people realized they didn't know as much as they thought they knew about the person sitting next to them. Mm-hmm. But they had similar experiences, and they were able to share them. And that brought them closer together. Mm-hmm. And you know, I think the thing that breeds discrimination really is that vacuum of lack of knowledge about someone else. Ignorance. You know? And you know, the more we learn about people, then we realize, hey, they're no different than we are. We all come this way. And we all leave we came with nothing, we're going to leave with nothing. Right. But in the meantime, can we leave something here for the people who are coming behind us?
Something that I've heard about White Plains, that's all extremely interesting to me. And something that I've heard about White Plains that people say over and over again is that integration here, school integration here, happened early and happened, they say, well.
It did.
You know?
It did. We had some little differences, and it took place in the high school when I was here, but we were able to overcome those. Mm-hmm. And as you say, integration did go well here, and I've been so pleased with the White Plains school system, because we have some of every. That as far as the economy is concerned, we represent every level of economic diversity
yeah, that's true.
in the city of White Plains.
Right.
And you can come to White Plains and you can see what's in Harlem. You can see what's in the Bronx. You can certainly see what's in Scarsdale. Right. But you can't go there and see what you see in White Plains. Right. So we've got everything that they don't have, and we have what they have too.
Right.
And that's what the world is all about.
So you feel that's part of what makes White Plains unique?
I do, and that's why I'm still here. That's just why, I know when I first came, and we could have moved any place, Scarsdale or anywhere, back then. But I liked what I saw here. And I just felt it, as I said, I felt at home. I never felt like a stranger here. And that was so important to me. And not feeling like a stranger made me want to help somebody else feel that same way. So that's what has kept me still reaching out to people. I still reach out to especially our young people. And in our church, I've seen so many young people grow up since I've been in that church so long. And what's so wonderful about it, practically all of them go to college, and they all call me. We all stay in touch. And I'm also past president of the White Plains Rotary Club. And that's a wonderful organization. Every Tuesday I'm at Rotary. And that's where I was before we had this meeting.
Right.
And there, it's the same motto. The motto of Rotary is what I live, service above self. And that's what we do. Our scholarships, we give close to $25,000 a year in scholarships to students graduating from White Plains High School, Stepinac, and Good Counsel. Because we might lose Good Counsel, I hope not, but we're all running through some economic problems right now.
I guess something that I'm interested to hear the perspective of people who, arrived in White Plains when you did, or lived in White Plains in the 60s, is how much the landscape changed in the 60s and 70s.
Well, this was not here. The library was not here when I came.
Sure.
That parking lot and that shopping center over there, that came up when I was on the city council.
Right.
All the rest of this has been since I, years after me.
Sure.
But then I came in, and in a few years after I was here, that's when urban renewal started.
Right.
All of this was,
cleared. Yeah, cleared.
And the people were moved out, and we lost a lot of the minority community. A lot of them moved to Yonkers and to Mount Vernon. And some came back, some did not come back. Mm-hmm. But others have come in since.
Sure.
And that's the nature of development. Mm-hmm. And but I'm pleased, and I go. I don't travel as much as I used to, but I don't care where I go. I'm always glad to get back to White Plains. I just feel so much better when I can drive down these streets, and I can see and do everything that I need to do right here. And we got the best hospital in the world, believe me. I'm an expert on that because I've been in there so many times. and it was so interesting. I've been in the hospital a couple of times, and when I was director of the Human Rights Commission, and the mayor came to see me, members of the council came to see me, the the Mosaic chorus came in and sang to me, and the people want to know, well, who are you? I said, well, I'm sick, but I'm. These are my friends.
Here to help you get better.
Yeah, and the last time I was there, Nick Wolf, you know who Nick Wolf is,
Mm-hmm.
and he's our best friend. He's one of our best friends. My wife taught him when he was in junior high school.
See, yeah.
His father helped us get our first house in
Right.
White Plains. And that was an interesting situation, too, because, we were just kind of breaking the color lines, so to speak. Not me, but I was there when it was happening. Mm-hmm. And Nick Wolf's father was quite helpful in us getting our first house. And I remember that. And I was going to touch on something else I wanted to say that I skipped right now.
What did it have to do with Human Rights Commission, Common Council, Battle Hill?
Battle Hill used to be, my wife loved Battle Hill because Battle Hill was a typical middle class integrated community when we were there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she loved it.
Yeah. I came across a plan, the Battle Hill redevelopment plan
Yes.
that was proposed, right?
Yes, yes.
Was that
And
why
and
you
you
were
know, and we fought this. What was this thing they wanted to put down
Oh yeah, the feeder.
the feeder route?
Feeder route.
Oh, did we?
Right.
Because we said, you put that feeder out there, you're separating Battle Hill from the rest of the city, and we really didn't want to be separated from the city.
So there was community level.
Oh yes,
resistance
and this is how I became involved, and it's all from the community. The community organizations. Each one of our community organizations in White Plains,
Right.
neighborhood associations are very important. So the Battle Hill Association was very, very much involved. Eli Ravikoff was one.
He's still around?
No, he's long gone. But I was, I had moved there, and Eli was very much involved, and I got to know him, and through our church, we became involved. And that's very interesting. And even with our church, when I first went looking for a church, I went to the black churches, and I just was not, that didn't do it for me because it was leaving out the other people that I wanted to be involved with. Mm-hmm. And so when I discovered our church, I went maybe once or twice, and then the next thing I know, the pastor comes. Walter Gehring comes and knocks on my door, and he comes in and he sits down and we talk. And it was the first time I'd ever called the pastor by his first name. We always grew up calling him Reverend and that way. I'm Walter, and I couldn't get over that, and what a great man, what a great man. And that drew me into the Chatterton Hill Church. And now I'm in the choir. I've been in the choir a long time, and I've been a deacon. Now I'm chairman of the board of deacons. I've been on just about every committee, because the congregation is small, so everybody gets a chance to serve on something. So I've been on every committee in the church, and my wife has too. She's been the moderator, which is the person next to the minister, and it's been fun. It's been fun. And the other part of my life, since I retired 3 years ago, we started, the day I retired in 1983, the next morning I went to the conservatory and started studying the violin again. And I've been there for the past 15 years.
Conservatory on Central.
Right. My children grew up in that conservatory also when it was over on the south side of town. Mm-hmm. And from there, I'm now in two orchestras, and the New Westchester Symphony Orchestra, which is right here in White Plains, and the other orchestra is the Really Terrible Orchestra.
Oh, yeah.
And the Really Terrible Orchestra is not terrible. They're wonderful musicians, people like me who came back to their instruments and are enjoying it, really enjoying it. And then, of course, my other involvement, when you talk about community involvement, I was on the board I chaired the board of United Way for 4 years. I was on the board of the YMCA. I've just been involved in a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And when I retired from the Human Rights Commission.
That was your full-time?
That was my full-time, yes. But even before that, I was in marketing with Eastman Chemicals, which is part of Kodak.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And before that, I was with the National Conference of Christians and Jews in New York City. And before that, I was teaching in Mount Vernon. And before that, I was in Cambodia. And before that, I was teaching in Brooklyn at Macon Junior High School. Had a whole lot of great students to come out of that school and great teachers who became super administrators in the Board of Education after I left to go to Cambodia. Yeah. And from there, I went to Cambodia and then came back to Mount Vernon. And that brings you
so you haven't been
to
afraid
complete
of
circle.
Changing directions? Or?
No, it's been a wonderful experience.
What do you feel has united your work?
What did I feel united my work?
Right, like what drew you to each of those things that, was there something that united?
Oh, yes. From Mount Vernon, well, actually from Brooklyn, because I was in the New York City school system. I started first in Manhattan. And I remember one of my students in my first job, I sent him down to the Amateur Athletic Union building to pick up my uniform and take it to my apartment. And I was getting ready to go to Europe to compete. So we had to get our blazers and uniforms. So I sent him to do that, and he did it. And then he took it to my apartment. He said he saw all these trophies, and he said he was so impressed. And make that story short, he finally graduated. He broke the high school 1,000-yard record when he was in high school. And then he went to Eastern Shore, University of Maryland. Then he got his doctorate, and he just retired from teaching in Maryland. And we were on the phone just not too long ago. We've stayed in touch all these years. That's one student. When I was in Mount Vernon, I taught our state senator. No. Wait a minute, our new state, what's his name?
Our state senator.
Our state senator.
I'm new to down here, so forgive me.
He's okay. Oh, Lord, I can't call his name.
Not Day.
No, Dave, I know. He's in the House of Representatives. He's in the House. George Latimer. Yeah, I taught George Latimer in junior high school. Mm-hmm. And there's a judge here that I taught also in junior high school.
So teaching people is what?
I taught English, social studies, and physical education. And Fred Singleton, who was the coach at White Plains High School, taught him. I taught his brother, Kenny, who was a professional baseball player. A lot of those kids in Mount Vernon, basketball players, a lot of those guys I taught. And it was interesting. Even my Army experience was interesting. When I went into service in 1951,
drafted or volunteered?
I was drafted. I had just graduated from Seton Hall, and I was getting to go to grad school, and they caught me right in between. And I was going to Fort Jackson, and they stopped the bus to go to a restaurant to eat. And when I got off to go eat, they told me I had to go to the back door to be served. So I refused to go to the back door. I got back on the bus. And when I got down to Fort Jackson, I just wondered if I really wanted to take the oath. And, you know, I just felt like it wasn't my fight. My fight was right here. So we had an incident in the service, and with one of the officers, and the officer asked me, he says, "Soldier, what's your problem?" And I said, "Well, sir, I want to explain something to you. When I came to South Carolina and went to a restaurant to eat, they told me I had to go to the back door just before I got ready to come into service. Now, you're asking me to come in here to give my life for my country? And my country is not allowing me to go in the front door." I said, "I don't have a fight with the Koreans. The Koreans didn't do anything to me. My fight is right here." He left me alone. And then finally they found out that I could run. And it happened this way. We were having a physical fitness test where you do pull-ups, push-ups, and chin-ups, and all these other things. And they have a little shuttle run. You run down here and you come back. Well, I did it. And the old sergeant didn't believe it. You know, he looked at his watch and he didn't believe it. Yeah, so he made me do it again. So I ran faster the second time. He still didn't believe it. So he made me do it again. I ran faster the third time. So the next time he calls the colonel over to see me do this. So I ran faster the fourth time. So, you know, at the end of the day, I was the guard arm bearer. So I carried the flag. And so as we were going back at the end of the day, I'm marching right next to the colonel. And the colonel said, "That was a fine demonstration today, soldier." And I said, "Well, thank you, sir." He said, "How would you like to be on the track team?" I said, "That's a good idea, sir." And he said, "Well, you know, you won't be able to finish basic." I said, "That's right, sir." And I kept right on marching, and the next day, they had transferred me to a special service barracks. I had my own orderly who cleaned the barracks, and I had a ping pong table, a pool table, and everything in there. And that was it. And from there, I won the 400, the 800, the triple jump, which I had never done before, in the Third Army Championships, and then went from that to Fort Jackson won the Third Army Championships because the two of us won almost 10 events between two of us. And Jim Cook was the other guy. He's from Nyack. And the next year we had the inter service and all Army track meets at Fort Jackson. And I won the 400-meter hurdles and the 200-meter low hurdles, and was on the 4x400-meter relay team. So we won that. And then we got to the national championships, and I was on the sprint medley relay team, which set an American record. And from there, I was in Europe running. And when we came back the next year, it was time for me to get out. I said goodbye and left. And I came on back and went on to school and kept running and started teaching. And then that was my Army experience. And when I got into teaching and then went on to all of these different jobs. And with the National Conference of Christians and Jews, it was a wonderful experience because it really opened my eyes.
I've never heard of that organization.
Oh, you didn't?
No, can you tell me about it?
Oh, they have a chapter here in Westchester.
Oh.
It's been in existence a long time. And it really came into existence when, I can't remember now, a candidate for the presidency was denied his opportunity because he was Catholic. And you have to check that history.
Okay.
Google National Conference of Christians and Jews,
Well,
and you'll get all the information. Because it's a wonderful organization, and it's all about bringing people of all religious and ethnic groups together. And I got in there at a time when the Black Power movement was very powerful in New York City. And at that time also, when I was teaching in Brooklyn, and the schools were beginning to integrate, in our school, we put a lot of emphasis on being academically prepared. And we told the children, said, now you're going to be going into different schools where you're going to see other people who are going to be well prepared. And you need to be prepared. And so we concentrated on that. And these teachers were so dedicated. As I said, so many of them moved up in the ranks. And I mean, they headed all kinds of departments in New York City back during that time in the 60s, and especially in art. And that was one of my buddies who was in the art division. The one headed all the music in there. And our principal, Martha Finkler, went on to become one of the big superintendents in the school, you know, and I was so proud of those people. And she was kind of disappointed when she knew I was going to Cambodia, because she said, I had great plans for you. And I said, well, I got this call from the State Department, and I just couldn't turn it down.
They handpicked you?
Yeah, they did. You know, they called up and asked me, how would you, well, you know, how they did it. They would pick athletes to go certain places. Well, they knew that I had graduated. They knew what my background was. And they knew that, well, I had been into all these other languages. I spoke French. They knew that. And so I really wanted to go to Africa at that time, but one of the coaches from Howard University had gotten that assignment. So they asked me, how would you like to go to Cambodia? I said, well, wait a minute. Let me ask my wife. I said, Becky, you want to go to Cambodia? She said, okay. And she was pregnant at the time, and so I said yes. And that was, I went. She came after David was 4 months old. David had just been born when they called and asked me. And my father-in-law wouldn't let us go before then. He was a physician. Yeah. So he had already checked, and so he knew. And he wanted to be sure that his grandson was going to be all right. Right. So Becky came over when David was 4 months old. But that was a great experience. And I wrote a track and field book called Piste des concours pour les débutants, which is track and field for beginners. It's translated into French and Cambodian, and then used in the French-speaking countries of Africa. So that's why they sent me to Senegal, Mauritania, Mali, the Gambia, and the Ivory Coast to coach. And I would do that every summer when I was teaching at Mount Vernon. In May, yeah. Wow. In May, the State Department would call, and the superintendent would release me to go before school closed. So I did that, and it lasted until I came home one year. My daughter didn't know who I was. I said, well, I can't do that anymore. So I stopped that, and I just concentrated on being face-to-face with people here in the United States. And I've loved it.
So something that your stories about White Plains, you know, on the Human Rights Commission made me think of is, and your stories about growing up in the South, think of at that time is, you know, the sort of the progress of, I guess, efforts for social justice, would you call it? And sort of where you think, and I'm talking about White Plains, where you think, you know, the community's focus could be now, or is now, or should be now?
Our focus, and I'm going to say this, our focus really needs to be on ensuring that our young people are thoroughly educated. And I don't want to pick on any one group. I want all of our young people to be thoroughly educated and given undivided attention to achieving that goal. That's what I would like to see. You know, young people today are a little different than they were when, you know, even when I was growing up. I guess I kind of lived sort of a sheltered life because I didn't come in contact as a child with a lot of negative things because I lived in a segregated community that was very protective of its children. The teachers, very, you know, the teachers were the community.
Yeah.
It's not like today,
Right, I see.
you know? It's not like, and even when I started teaching, I was always there with the children. I knew where they lived. I could be there, you know, because I thought that's what I should be doing. Rather than, you see them during the day, then you go off about your business, and boom, you don't see them until the next day. There's no real relationship there. If you see them when they're away from school, then you're going to be tied in with the parents, and then the relationship is good. And then now we have such divided families in terms of all these single parent families, and of course it's the economy has a lot to do with it, and I understand that. I do understand that, but we have a responsibility, even though they're not our children. We are the adults, and they need to know that they can stand on our shoulders, but they can't do it by themselves. They have to have some help. I had some shoulders to stand on, and so did my parents. And that's very important. So that's the thing that I see. When I see all the children and young people around, I'm concerned. But you know what? All is not lost. Because when we interview students at these schools, White Plains Good Counsel and Stepinac, for Rotary scholarships,
Right.
those are the kids you don't read about in the newspaper. And it makes you feel good. You say, all is not lost. So, I'm privileged to be able to see both sides. And so I can say that I'm concerned, that I want to bring this side up to this side. I want to see us all moving in a positive direction together. And so it takes effort on my part to be over here, because not everybody's going to have the same interests that I have and other people have about the needs of people who need to be helped. And I accept that. And I'll accept that as part of my responsibility.
That's profound. Appreciate you sharing that.
Well, I appreciate you asking.
Yeah.
You've handled this so well. When you ask things, it makes it easier for me to respond.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It's encouraging. I feel like you've touched on on sort of the questions I had written down.
Mm-hmm.
As far as what you're most proud of your work in White Plains, and what you think makes White Plains special.
I'll tell you what else makes White Plains special. Your elected officials are just a footstep away, and you can get to them.
Yes,
They're not somebody you put in office that sits up there on a pedestal that looks down on you. You got a problem, you can go right to them.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't leave White Plains for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a community should be like.
I agree. Yeah, I think someone else mentioned that to me as well. That that something that attracted people to White Plains was a sense that there was clean government here.
Oh yes. Yes, indeed.
What do you think why do you think that culture exists? That culture.
I can't tell you why it exists.
Yeah.
It was here before I got here. And so I just attached myself to it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look out and see what goes on around us, I realize what a great city we have. And then too, White Plains is manageable. You see, it's not so large that before you address a problem here, when you come back around, that you got another problem here. The same problem is there. You can address all your problems. You can do it because you can control all this area. It's not like New York City.
Sure.
You just can't get to everything in New York City. It's too big, too many people. And you know, I don't want to live where I don't know the people who are making decisions. I want to be a part of that, and that's what White Plains is. And you know, it's not just casting a vote. You have something to say. You can say it, and that's what I like.
Nice. You know, my personal interests, you know, as the librarian here charged with answering questions about White Plains history and people's research questions. You know, I find most people's questions have to do with the more distant past. And luckily, my predecessors here at the library did a very good job creating indexes and collections of information to answer those questions.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So now it's my job to, you know, create that kind of information for sort of our time period.
Right,
people in the
right.
future.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So I'm wondering if
Oh,
what you think.
Ben Boykin.
Ben Boykin. Okay.
Now, Ben is now our county legislator. He was a member of the city council. Another African American, at least.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to him. But I'm wondering what you think are the topics, you know, whether it be the Human Rights Commission, the record of the Human Rights Commission, or housing, or economic development. What do you think are the stories that need to be preserved of White Plains during your time here?
I think the housing. You know, there was a time when no minorities lived on the south side of town. The only person that lived over there was Harry Jefferson.
And how did that change?
How did it change?
It has changed.
Oh, yeah, I live over there. Bill Brown lives over there.
Yeah.
A whole lot of people live over there now. You know, that changed. Winbrook changed. When Winbrook was built, it was built mainly for veterans coming back, and most of them were white.
I didn't know that, yeah. Wow.
So black people didn't always live there. They came later when the whites moved out. So, you know, that changed, that whole thing changed. And like our community on Battle Hill, it was an integrated community. It's still an integrated community, but the integration has changed in terms of the makeup of the community. Well, this is happening all over the United States. The growth of the Hispanic community has created a tremendous impact on every community in the United States.
Absolutely.
And as we said way back, you know, we said by 2012, you were going to see a gradual change in the minority complexion. I mean, in the majority complexion of the United States.
Right.
And by 2020, you're really going to see it.
Sure.
It's happening.
Well, even in White Plains, I mean.
Yes, you see it already here.
Spanish-speaking population.
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, my thing was, you know, it's happening. Let's don't fight it. Let's all come together and make it pleasant for everyone. Well, I can't speak for Washington, but I can speak for White Plains. You know? Let us do what we can do here in our community and hope that it will spread to others. But anybody that comes in here knows that it's going to be treated respectfully and have an opportunity to express their views freely to the city mothers and fathers. And that's you know, this is where we have control. Every one of those people out there has the same control that you and I have. And although I just want them to know that. And That's the thing that I'm concerned about, is seeing that we create that and let it expand. And it will take time. We've come a long ways. If you look at the political structure here in White Plains, and I remember when I first came in, as I told you, Democrat couldn't be elected a dog catcher here.
Right.
But look at it now. It's changed. But with that change, I don't want to leave out anybody. I want everybody to have an equal opportunity in this city. And to show you how we really tried to do that, when I ran for city council, Brian Wallach was my co-campaign chairman. He's a Republican. But we've been friends.
Yeah.
The party had nothing to do with that.
Right. Interesting.
So, that's the way it should be.
Well, it's inspiring to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And, certainly your every single thing you've done in White Plains seems to be pretty in line with that belief. So you're walking the walk.
Yeah, well, I also, you want to be treated nicely, and you got to treat somebody else nice,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll come back to you.
Seems like a good note to end on.
All right.
You have anything else you want to add?
Yes, I just want to say that you are a wonderful interviewer.
Thank you.
And I've enjoyed it. I had no idea what I was going to do when I came, but you were so prepared. As I said initially when we began, that you just opened the door, and it made it easy for me to go ahead.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear
And
that.
I certainly appreciate
You
that.
can do it again if you want.
All
More
right.
stories come up.
I hope to be around again. Today, I'm out playing golf, and my buddies would always say to the front, "You see that guy right there? He's 85 years old." I played golf once with a group of young men, and I guess I was back in my 80s then, and they were just hitting that ball, booming it out there, and I was still outscoring them. And we finished 9 holes. My buddy told him I was 80 years old, they really couldn't believe it, and the game kind of went to pot for the next 9 holes after that.
They didn't want to play again?
Yeah. And now, and I see guys, I meet people, and when they find out I'm 85, the first thing they want to be like me. So I said, let me tell you something. When you get my age, I want to be here. I want to see you when you become 85. So I want to be here too.
Is there a secret?
Boy, it's fun.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed it very much.
All right. Well, that's going to conclude our interview for today then. Thank you, Harry.
Oh, you're welcome.